Morning, guys. Happy Friday to you all. I hope that you are okay. As always, I'm going to start with going through yesterday's answers. So, I gave you a picture yesterday, one of my favourite films of all time, Toy Story. This was from, and I hope that you managed to look closely at it and in lots of detail. Just going to go through the answers. So the first thing I asked you to do was have a look at these questions here. So number one, what are Andy's interests? So from looking at the picture, you can see that he is interested in skateboarding. Why? Because he's got a skateboard here and a poster here. He is interested in games, so I'm thinking things like consoles, which you can see here, and of course music, because he's got guitars. These could be CDs, looks like a CD rack here. Number two, what type of person is Andy? Well, that links on to the impressions and evidence, which I'll go over in a second. Number three, how old do you think Andy is? Now, notice I put how old do you think Andy is because, of course, with inference, we don't know for definite. Most of you, in fact, I think all of you the work that I've seen got this correct. I can infer he is 10 because there is a poster with the number 10 on. But just playing devil's advocate here, that could be his favourite football player's number, it could be the number that he lives, but of course the obvious answer would be that that is to do with his age. Number four, what do you think Woody is looking at? So what do we think Woody is looking at here? The obvious answer would be, I think he's wondering where Andy is, but there really is no right or wrong answer for this because, of course, it's inference, which means we don't know a definite answer. We're going by what we can see. Then I asked you to have a go at this question. Based on what you can see in the picture, what is your impression of Andy? So remember, we're reading that question carefully, and this question's asking us about Andy, not Woody, and not the room. So my first impression is that he is untidy or he's a bit messy. Why? What's my evidence? Because there's lots of stuff on the floor, so there's socks, washing, and other things on the floor. My other impression of Andy is he likes skateboards or he's quite an active person. And what's my evidence? There's a skateboard and some posters with skateboards on. My third impression is he likes guitars or music. And what's my evidence for that? Well, my evidence is that there's two guitars in the room, and you wouldn't really have guitars in your room if you weren't somebody into music. Obviously, there are many more that you could have, and as long as your answer is linked to your you've got evidence linking to what your impression is, then that's fine. And there's, and as long as it's correct and it's not completely random and nothing to do with the picture. This one, task two, write a short description of Andy based on what you can see in the picture. Really, really good. The pieces of work that I've seen. Of course, it's really writing a description based on what his room's like and using that evidence. It's almost that summarizing skill based on what you can see. If you want me to mark yours in detail, then please send it across and I will get back to you today. Okay, moving on to today's lesson, Friday. Now, we've been setting a lot of comprehension tasks and I haven't really spoken much about just reading. Now, I know that in the time that I've been at home, the number one thing I've been doing is reading a lot more. Amazon's become my best friend. I think we have in our house at least 2 Amazon parcels a day delivered, of all different types of things. So I'm having lots of books delivered. Um, my mum's having lots of gardening things delivered, and my brother's having lots of phones delivered as part of his job. And there's always someone knocking on the door at the moment with some sort of delivery, but my delivery is lots of books. Now, I've read these 2 books so far since we've been off. I've read Can You See Me, which is a book about an autistic child. Quite a sad book, but very relatable to real life. So that was quite a sad book that I've read. And I've read this adult book here called Good Vibes, Good Life. And it's written by somebody called Vex King, who is a very famous influencer on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And that's been a really nice positive book for me to read, and has actually made me feel a lot happier reading that type of book. So 2 very different books written for very different audiences. The next book I've just ordered is this one, Orphans of the Tide. And the reason I've decided that I'm going to read this one next is because there's been lots of recommendations on Twitter. So I'm looking forward to reading this book. Now, I realise that, you might not have lots of books at home. Completely understand that. In fact, some of you might not have any books at home. And if that's the case, then please feel free to let one of us know, and we can always make sure there's something at school that you can pick up if you want to read a certain book, because of course all of the books are still in the book area at school. So please do get in contact with us if you want to read a certain book, or you've been wanting to read one this year, but you just haven't had a chance to get one. Um, Now, I want to know, what are you reading, or what have you read since we've been off school? We used to do this every so often, and I'd really like to keep this going, even though we're not at school. So today, I want you first of all to create for me a reading journal page for a book that you have read since we've been away from school. It doesn't have to be a whole book, it could just be a chapter. So when I'm talking about a reading journal, I'm talking about this page, this type of page here. Now, again, you're not necessarily going to have printers at home, so lots of drawing is fine, but I would like them to be set out in this way. So just to summarize what a journal page needs to have, it needs to have these categories here: who is the author, what's the age of the book for, what's a summary, what if you were telling someone in a couple of sentences what this book was about, what would you say, what do you like, any vocabulary that stood out to you or you've had to unlock the meaning of, and lastly, what would you rate it? Now, I'd like to see, or I'd like you to submit by the end of the day, a reading journal page and just a picture of you reading some sort of book. I had a couple as we started our home learning of children reading outside, and when the weather is so nice like it's been this week, then actually just reading outside is lovely, and that's one of the best things to do. Remember, reading really, really does help you with comprehension, or even your parents reading to you. So get involved, let me know what books you're reading. Would really love to see if you can beat me with how many books I've read. I've read 2, I'm just about to start the 3rd one. And let me know how you get on. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, all of you, and have an amazing weekend. Take care. Bye bye.